Surprise, motherfucker.
There we are. Welcome, people of the internet. Um, yeah, my system update icon popped up like 2 minutes ago, and I'm gonna have to hide it because I was so tempted. I almost just clicked it like out of reflex, you know what I mean? But yes, welcome, Claw Radathon train people, Metal and Coffee community members.
What?
Appreciate it. That's a little hard to read. I'm gonna have to correct that, but not right now. I'll resist that urge as well. Um, if you didn't, I'm really proud of this, so I got to show it off real quick. My little incoming graphic I got here. I added the Japanese characters just the other day. So this is the first time I get to use it. But yeah, um, we might listen to a little metal later. I've been really into Elder lately, so I feel some of it is like stream appropriate. I feel like it'd be good background music. But for right now, this is the Ill-Advised Records YouTube channel. They've got a bunch of like spooky hip hop, trip hop type stuff. I've been a fan of theirs since really I began streaming a couple years ago. I got shit falling on me from the ceiling now. Let's hope that doesn't continue. Um, anyway, yes, Sam KitKat, welcome in. Elder is fantastic. I never really gave him a fair shake when I was younger. But man, yeah, I've really been getting into him here recently. Let's first things first. I want to hide the update icon. Uh, all right. Anyway, yes, welcome in, folks. I thought long and hard about what I was gonna do for the Radathon stream, and what I landed on is we're gonna do kind of a sort of mix between presentational tutorial style, where normally I just kind of like I have projects and I hack on them, and we'll be doing that in the second half, but really what I wanted to talk to you all about, which, yeah, can you guys like scoot toward the middle so that we've compacted all of the space and everybody can get toward the front? I know it might be a little uncomfortable sitting next to people that you don't know, but it's for the greater good, so I appreciate that. Anyway, I wanted to talk about Traefik and how you can do some load balancing with it. So what we're going to do is set up a really simple web application. We're going to have a web server for our static files so that those don't get run through like a web application. They get run through a web server that's able to hand off like socket control to the kernel and stuff. I don't want to get too far in the weeds. Maybe we'll get into that in a little bit, but and then this Traefik instance, and it's all going to be bound together inside of a Docker Compose stack cluster. I don't know what you refer to those groups of objects on. Composition, a Docker composition, to where it's all going to work together, and we will be not only load balancing the web application traffic, haha, using this Traefik cloud native networking platform, your cloud native networking platform. Don't ever forget that. Don't let them take it away from you. We're going to be using that to load balance between the web application instances, but also hand off any of the static file access to the just plain Jane web server. And you know, plain Jane is perfectly fine. It gets the job done. We're going to be using nginx in that instance, but you could just as easily use something that maybe you have more experience with, like Caddy or Light TTPD or Apache, I guess. I really don't recommend it. I think it's pretty heavy-handed for what we're doing here, but nonetheless, I think the nginx config will be simple enough that it's easy to follow. And I'm going to be craning my neck. Dark lo-fi trip hop. Trash puppy, that's exactly what some of it sounds like. Maybe this one. Well, it's about over, so let's not comment on that too much. But yeah, there's lots of samples from either like made for TV horror or B grade flicks. gosh, what is he? He has some kit he uses where he can like kind of fuck. It's not like mixing so much as just altering sound that's coming in, and he's using like two tape decks and doing some wacky loopy shit. It's pretty interesting to see. He's done a couple of live streams. The guy's name is Dated, Dated. So yeah, Dated, and then Ill-Advised Records is, and let's see if this works. Oh, come on, buddy. All right, well, that's not gonna shit. That bothers me. I had at one point, let me check my console just real quick because we're just getting started here. Loading command YT, yes. I wonder if its token has expired. All right, I'm gonna kill my bot real quick. That's okay. It's not a person. You don't have to feel bad. All right, it's using an OAuth token. I wonder if I just need to refresh that real quick. Is it logged in as me? No. Okay, shit. I've got to log in as the bot. Well, we'll fix that during a break then, maybe. I don't want to take up too much time with it, but it would link you to the YouTube video that I'm currently listening to so that you can bookmark it for yourself. But for now, oh shit, I just clicked Stream Raiders. Man, I'm fucking up all over the place and we're like 6-7 minutes into this. That's the current playlist. We're like almost halfway through. See if I can, I think nothing's running under wine. Damn it. Nope, guys, gotta let it load. All right, well, if my frame rate tanks clear to the molten core of the earth here in a second, I think we'll all understand why my deck is out of stink here. Okay. Well, welcome in. Yeah, I like the spooky hip hop on this channel. It's pretty dope. So if you all are not familiar with it, and I would do a poll or something, but I haven't streamed a lot in the last few months, so I'm a bit rusty with that shit. I say I would do a poll to find out what everybody's comfort level is with sort of like DevOps and load balancing and that sort of thing in general. I believe just because you're watching a claw streamer and the majority of claw streamers have and share their experience with web development, that a fair amount of you are into web development. Maybe you're just used to particular stacks and you haven't yet experimented with the DevOps side of it, or you have, but it's not part of your day-to-day. If you have and you dislike it, maybe you can hang around just to, you know, be part of chat and, I mean, talk a little shit. That's fine. Just don't be rude. But we'll be getting into actual development projects here. So to start with, if you're not familiar, Traefik, I mean, they go through their spiel here on the page where they're saying like, oh, it's your cloud native networking platform. And I mean, it really has evolved into a lot more than what it started out as, but all we're really going to be using it for today, there's a couple of purposes. So one, it's going to sit in between all the different services that we're going to run under the hood and the so-called outside world. We're going to be doing all of this like within the local network and even on a single machine. So outside world is definitely in air quotes there, but wow, that is abrasive. Give me a second. Oh, great. Yeah, I can kill Stream Raiders now. Okay, there we go. It does have some crescendos, that's for sure. But anyway, Traefik will be sitting in between sort of our entire web application stack, which is both horizontal and vertical, and will be serving all of the content or deciding how to serve all of the content, which is an important distinction for us to make there. So it does, like I said, does a whole shitload of stuff. We only care about a couple of the things. One being the proxy, which is where it sits in between, and then the other being that it's got a way for us to make decisions at the proxy level using a set of some rules that we could construct using like regular expressions, host name matching, IP address matching. It can handle like authentication up front for web applications on the back end that don't necessarily want to do that. It can even manage all of the Let's Encrypt certificate renewal and then act as an SSL termination point for your web application, which basically just means that it handles all of that shit, and then it can talk to your web application within the local network if you set it up securely using plain text, and your application itself doesn't need to be concerned with SSL certificates and encrypted traffic and all this kind of stuff. So that's also pretty convenient. We'll see how deep we get into all those various things, but at the very least, as I said before, and I'm kind of repeating myself now, so we'll get going. We want to just do some proxying. We want to have static web server in our web application. So the web server will be using nginx, web application stack. I'll probably just slap together a really quick Python web app using Flask, just because you can start off so small. I mean, literally just like a couple of lines. We can have a web application running that we can then later add a couple of other endpoints and stuff too. Oh man, parched. All right, give me a second here. Oh, Chelada. How I love you so. All right. The reason I brought this up wasn't just for illustrating the point, I guess, that we're going to be using. I guess they have split it into multiple products, so we're going to use Traefik proxy, but it's been a little while, and I might be using an outdated version. So I'm on like two. Let me see what my other project was on here. It was, what was it? I think it was actually my not public project, but I mean, it's one that I work on stream all the time, so I'm not necessarily worried about showing you the code because I don't care. I show the code a lot. There's hundreds of hours of me showing the code. Where did I cram that into? Oh, I'm one folder down. That's probably why. That's right. Okay, so this has a Docker folder. This is the stack for a web game that I used to work on very regularly, but I hit some sort of like speed walls, I guess, with the combination of Python library. Okay, so this is 2.6. This is actually a little old. I know I've been using 2.7 elsewhere, so let's see. We'll go to the GitHub repo, I guess. They're trying to sell me something here, and that's not what we're looking for. 2.9. Okay, so it's still in the 2 version. We'll try to put a stack together using 2.9, and hopefully it'll be familiar enough to me that we don't run into any trouble. So we're going to make a new project, call it Traefik ALB, just ALB for application load balancing. I think we're on Python 3 here. Yeah, 3.8. I don't actually want 3.8. Do I have, I think I have 3.10. This using, I might be using PyEnv. No. Ooh, so it's binary. So it's a link then. What? L. No. Oh, I typed it twice. What the fuck? There we go. Okay. Oh, I got a bunch of junk in there. Python 2, that's not what we want. 3.8.10. Okay, so the system's on 3.8. We'll just, whatever. It doesn't matter. This is a simple app. Okay, so first, we will have docker dash compose YML. We will have a folder for our web app. We'll have a folder for our static assets. What else? I don't think we'll need a Docker file. I always set up an editor config, so we'll just we'll get that out of the way. And we're gonna want a git ignore. Seems fair to start. Yeah, like I said, I think we can get away without defining our own Docker image and just use existing images and adding layers over them by mounting. I tried to smash like mount and bind together. And somehow didn't come out with mind like you would imagine you would. Mounting folders into it, binding ports, that kind of shit. Copying files, I guess, if you didn't want to mount. I got crap on my monitor. Me commenting on how dirty my office is probably going to be a theme. All right, we will open the folder. And I'm going to steal my editor config. Should probably steal it from a Python project, though. Oh, what's a recent one? This is somewhat recent, at least. And includes YAML. Very nice. All right. All right, we got our editor config, git ignore. We're gonna ignore PyC. We're gonna ignore PyCache. Gonna ignore VS Code. That's probably enough for now. All right, what version of Docker Compose are the kids using these days? Okay, so not the command line reference. Compose file, here we go. So they talk about needing, it's only informative, should not use this version to select an exact schema, but prefer the most recent schema at the time it has been designed. Yeah, okay, I get that, but what is the most recent version of the schema? And they just, wow, they straight up do not tell you there. That's frustrating. Man, that last jam is one of his earliest ones, so that's giving me some feels. Legacy version is 3. This is the newest version. So why is that under legacy versions? What in the fuck? All right, well, we'll try 3.8. And then we're going to start defining our services. So first and foremost, I mean, we're going to have traffic, right? That's a given. We will have our web server and we'll have our web application, or web app for short. All right, so yeah, this is all still pretty familiar. I'm used to like 3 dot, gosh, I want to say 3.3, 3.4. I don't know about block.io config, but the rest of this seems pretty normal. All right, this nginx, we'll just we'll say latest for now. I usually try to pin my versions on everything, but that'd be another hunt for this. So, or wait, all right, web server, and then image for this one. That's gonna be Python. And I believe it's the Python. Wait, what? Is the official one not listed first? Well, I know this is bullshit. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know why this didn't come up first. So we can say 3.8 whatever. And then I believe dash alpine, which is what I'm typically used to using here. So I think it's 3 dash alpine for latest revision of 3. And what were we on? 3.8.10. Let's see if they have a 3.8.10. Man, it's finally happened. I'm getting used to Mac OS key bindings for like switching windows and stuff, and it's starting to fuck with me on any other machine, which makes me a little sad. Okay, so we set the work directory. It looks like that is sort of how they kick it off. Command, Python, whatever, place to go to your script. If we wanted to install it, yeah, the Python one we may have to make an image for, unfortunately. That's okay though, it'll be incredibly simple. All right, so let's get that going then. We've got a Docker file now. It's gonna be from Python 3.8.10 Alpine. Let's just do 3.8. I feel like that's good enough. Workdir app. We will gosh, I want that to be mount friendly. I guess, yeah, I've done both. So we'll have, let's add. All right, so everything in web app, we add to the app folder. Our command. Or we can do that. All right. So that, I mean, that's the basic Docker file for just slapping together a lot of port, I suppose. Is it not? Maybe it's expose. Yeah. Okay. And I'm trying to structure this in such a way that if the contents of our app folder change, it doesn't need to run all this shit again. It just has to run these two layers. This particular Docker file is not all that complex, but with more complex Docker files, that really does start to become a concern. And it's just kind of been burned into me to organize those as I'm going. All right. We've got our latest Traefik image. We've got our Python 3.8.10 Alpine. We've got latest nginx. This is not going to be from this. It's going to be build this. Or what? It's like context? Yeah. Oh, let's look that up real quick. Because I know you can, as it gets built. Whoops, yeah, new tab. Okay, so whatever the image you provide, that is what it builds. So that makes sense. So we'll say the image, that is going to be Halifax traffic ALB example. All right. For now, we're going to take traffic out of the picture and we're just going to test these two components individually to verify that they work the way that we want them to. So nginx, it's got some configuration. Yes, so this is the root content. That's where we are going to be mounting our stuff as well. So user share nginx HTML. We'll grab that real quick. I can zoom this in. Go to 150. This will be static. Mount that read only. This will have some ports as well. For this one, we'll do 8080 to 80. This one, We're just going to pass 5,000 straight through. All right, so now within static, we make it a Python module, and then we're going to give it its main, so this will be its entry point. And then we're going to need our requirements and our setup pi. Okay. That wasn't right. It's like Python hosts or palettes projects. That's what it was. I should, what am I doing, man? I haven't done Python development in a minute. 2.2.2. Everybody make a wish. All right, so we'll pull in Flask 2.2.2. Setup pi, I also don't remember how to make. So we're going to steal that from back when I knew what was going on. And what, I think we make that one level deeper, so that's all in static is absolutely not where it should be. We'll put that in web app. I think that's only if you want to generate it as a wheel, so I'll leave it alone. Okay. We don't care about the extras. So we'll definitely steal this. Change a lot of this, but we can steal it nonetheless. Whoops, too far. All right, so name ALB, just yeah, demo. I don't know. Yeah, demo. Don't need that. We don't have a license. We don't care about classifiers, keywords. Our packages will be... Okay, this is why it needed to be one level up. Okay, so packages will be web app. No extras. I think that's about the bare bones that we get away with. Okay, or we will go one level deeper than this, so we'll call that demo. Throw those two in there. All right. So then our entry point is going to change for our Docker file. It'll be demo. Because, yeah, it's got to line up with this. Us pointing at the screen, what the fuck? It's got to line up with this package name here. Okay. Let's see. And I mean, really, that's it. We pretty much just, we fire up a Flask app, we decorate a route, and then it can return a string. I mean, it can get more complex than that, but we don't really need it to. And then for static, honestly, this doesn't even need to be a CSS file or anything like that for this demonstration, and so I'm going to try to keep that simple. I guess we at least have enough to try firing up the stack that we've got right now and trying to hit these two apps individually and just see whether or not they start, I guess, first of all. I have a shortcut command, DC, so all this is running Docker Compose. All right, version is unsupported. Okay, so 3.3 looks like the highest we can go with. Hold on, which Docker Compose user bin? Okay, so that is system wide. I guess I could make an extras file that has the Docker Compose version pinned as well, just to make it easier to redistribute, but we'll see about that once we get the basic setup going. So, all right. If anybody's out there that does Python web development, I would love to hear what your stack is. I mean, I always just sort of dabbled into Flask and then went down that road. But I never really know what people are using like out in the wild at work. The Python apps that they, like the legacy apps that we have to maintain, those are using Django, but I'm not a really big fan because it's so heavy-handed, whereas Flask lets you make a lot of these decisions for yourself. Okay. Try it again. Okay, yeah, so I can override with a locally installed version of Docker Compose. That is nice. So it did install all of our dependencies. Init is missing one required positional argument, import name. Interesting. App equals Flask. Oh, I gotta give it, that's right. All right. I think it needs like something like that. Oh, I gotta build it again. And we don't necessarily have to build it again. We can mount over the top of it now that it's there and only worry about building it if we're going to distribute. Exit it with code 0, but why? Oh, because I never started it. Duh. So in main, we need to app dot what? Let's pip install e web app. All right, now VS Code, if we point it at the right virtual environment, yeah, now we're getting our IntelliSense and stuff. App.run. So host is all, port is 5000. We will leave it at that. All right, now we are cooking with gas. I think this is the one that we would be worried about here. All right. So this is the web application, the Python web application, which I guess we can add a distinction. I'm in the web application. And to show you how we can structure this in such a way we don't need to rebuild it every time, in our Docker file, if we add a volume /app, now if we change our dependencies, we would still need to rebuild it. But as long as we don't change dependencies and it's just the core code that's changing, we can mount over that volume after the image has been built. So we'll build it one more time to incorporate that change. We'll fire it up. We'll see I'm in the web application. So there it is. And they're so happy to see you. So again, we're not going to rebuild. We're just going to start it again. And yeah, that shit takes a while to come back gracefully. Stop. So there we go. And we did not have to rebuild. Now the image, if I were to distribute this, still has the old copy of main.py. So this is really only useful for testing or in an instance where you would want to allow somebody to override the entire application, which there certainly are circumstances for that. But anyway, all right, yes, we want to ignore another type of folder, egg-info. Does it not? I must not have done that quite. Oh, we're not even. Good grief. Wasn't even a Git repository to begin with. There we go. That's better. So now we can see PyCache is ignored. Egg.info is ignored. If there were PyC files here, those would be getting ignored as well. Can't remember if VS Code lets you hide those or not, but I know other editors would do so. Anyway, it's not important. We've got our web app and we've got our web server. And so now to demonstrate, before we start fleshing them out into something that looks a little bit more like an actual web app, we will bring Traefik in. And so this is almost 100%. In fact, we may work this out to where it is 100% within, well, no, it's probably not worth doing entirely inside the compose config here. But what we're going to do, we will be removing these ports here so that no ports are exposed outside of the Docker bridge, or the Docker internal network, sorry, between these. And so what we do now, we're going to make a network. We're going to call this just proxy, I guess. We're not going to worry about anything else concerning that right now. We're just going to define that network and we're going to call it proxy. And then we'll have a second network that we will call edge. And this is what's going to be exposed to the outside world, again, in air quotes. And so the Traefik instance it is going to sit on both. So it will sit on the edge network and it will sit on the proxy network. Is it S? Yeah. Each of these in turn will only be sitting on proxy. They will not be sitting on edge. And edge is the network that you would use to expose through sort of your like higher level configuration, or this is where you would expose the actual web ports. So like Traefik itself would be the one listening on 443 and 80. It's also got some other ports for it's like dashboard, I guess you could say. Which there, I mean, there's some definitely nifty shit going on in their dashboard. But all right, we got rid of our ports there. We're gonna add some here. So this will have we'll just try 80. Honestly, I don't think I have anything running on that. And then 443 I think can pass straight through as well. And then it needs access to the Docker socket so that it can see all of the other containers that are on the same networks that it belongs to. It actually sees those that are on the same system, but it's sort of like it will be instructed only to care about a particular network. In this case, it'll be this proxy network. So oh goodness, what was I doing again? We got our ports, we got our networks, we got our web app, we got our web server. We took those away, we put those here. The socket, that's right. And we provide that read only, so it's just going to be looking at this data. It's not going to be doing anything with it. So let's go with that for the time being, and then we'll pop back over to the Traefik documentation. Let's see, we want, what was their, yeah, they had a site for it. Doc, okay, just doc, not docs. Dark reader, making that real dark. Getting started, configuration introduction, install Traefik. So 8080, I think, is their dashboard port. 80 is the standard. We actually won't worry about 443 for right now. We'll slot that in when we start talking about SSL and stuff if we get that far. So we want Docker specific because it works with Kubernetes as well, but we don't particularly care about Kubernetes here. Let's go with the toml config. So we will pull all of this into a Traefik folder. Well, if I could spell it. afik.yml. What did we wind up on with the playlist here? Like dark synth or some shit. Yeah, I dig this. We'll keep it chill for a minute. All right. We do want, or sorry, I do not want containers to be exposed by default. We're going to expose them using labels. We don't care about checking new version. We're not going to send anonymous statistics. We will definitely have a web entry point. We're not going to do web secure right now, so we'll comment that. Default's error, but maybe we'll do info. Default standard out, which is fine. We'll go with common. JSON logging would be pretty convenient for AWS CloudWatch, though. That's slick. All right, so access logs do a bunch of shit by default. We don't want to override. API, we are going to disable. We're not doing ping configuration. We are doing Docker. All right, endpoint. Docker server endpoint can be a TCP or a Unix socket endpoint. Well, that's going to be the default, which is good. We'll leave that bar run docker.sock. Our default host rule. That's totally fine. We'll just use that. Okay. Now we'll get into more of the configuration. We want to configure the provider. Our provider is Docker. So, oh, cool. They have like ECS and Nomad. That's nice. Zookeeper. We will be using the container labels. I think it's like traffic.enable. Yeah. And then there's where you set the network. So the first two are the only two that, well, not the only two I care about. And I damn near forgot. Gosh, it always looks so slow when they go like straight down. Anyway, we've got enable true, we've got foobar. We'll put this on both. It's not going to be foobar though, it's going to be proxy, which I forgot to add to these two containers. We'll at least put the dashboard up there, even if we don't wind up using it right away. So we gave it the sock. We definitely need to mount the config somewhere. I'll figure that out here in just a second. We've got our build going. I think we can shorthand that for the context folder. Enable true. And then, I mean, this I'm not even 100% certain is necessary. But, all right. So yeah, expose. If it's got a single port, it'll figure it out on its own. We only expose one, so it should handle that by itself. Nginx, on the other hand, may be exposing both. Where is it? There's the ALB, there's Nginx latest. 80 to 80, but it's got let's just IPv4 and v6. That's fine. That's odd that it's got both. Or why would its default is 80/80? That's really strange. I get why I haven't reset the stack yet, duh. Because that's what we had it mapped to a moment ago. I am losing my damn mind, I swear. All right. We got our endpoint. Why can I not scroll the table of contents any further? That's shitty. You have to go like clear to the bottom. That's just silly. Use bind port IP, exposed by default. Network, that's what we want. Okay. So network is going to be Traefik ALB underscore proxy. So we got watch and constraints, watch Docker events. I mean, don't I want that though? And what the they don't even tell you really what that does. Okay, that's all right. I think we've just about got enough. Um, so I think on the individual container, you define a router. You give it any old name, it doesn't matter. You give it an entry point. In our case, it would be web. Because that's what we called it here. Web secure is what we will use eventually if we want to do this on port 443. We're not doing any middleware just yet. And then for rule is going to be that it's got to match the host name. So oh, and we have our default rule, so we might be able to just go to webapp.docker.localhost, but I'm not sure. I don't think that's gonna work. It might if I set that up myself. So let's kill the containers we got now. Let's rebuild. Again, we probably don't need to, but this is a small enough app that it doesn't take that long. We'll fire up our stack and we should be able to see we're getting traffic now. We didn't have that on the last go around. And I'm waiting for the traffic logs. But did it stop immediately? Right, I didn't give it the config file, so it's not going to be doing shit. That's not any of it. I want to mount it in the image, and this is not helping. Man, their decision on how they work this scroll out is super irritating. I want to know where the file needs to be located. Let's see, traffic, home.config, or the working directory. Okay. Well then. Assuming you can override it here also. I've been surprised before. Yeah, straight up. All right. File. It's not the dynamic configuration that I want. Gosh, all right, whatever. I gotta let a stupid cat in here in a second. A cat I love very much, but it's still stupid. All right, enable true endpoint web. I believe we'll just, I mean, what we'll mount Traefik / traffic.yml at etsy traffic config yml. Oh, need a colon there. Just like in real life. Get rid of our containers. Well, I'm still not seeing logs. Version, oh, right. Okay, it says it's listening on 80. So let's try 70 and or 90. Why not? Okay, so it got a hit. Got hit. Did it log? Will it blend? Can I click on anything? Okay, we're not getting logs. We're gonna pull from one of my other configs, but I gotta take a quick break. Let this cat in, use restroom. So we shall continue very shortly. Runny nose, but let's get back into it. So these containers are both firing up just fine. We got one web app, we got one web server with multiple different workers, which is interesting. We are gonna steal my traffic config. Okay, I had watch true, but I don't think that was really necessary. All right, we'll need our depends on. I think we need to provide it local time for the SSL stuff eventually. And it looks like we can put traffic YAML at the root. So let's do that. We got traffic YAML. We got our Docker socket. And this is going to depend on both web app and web server. They don't need to know about one another. Ooh, and proxy only has to sit on the external network. So I guess the internal is only for the ones that need to communicate with one another but not be exposed by traffic. So I had that a little bit mixed up. We don't need the internal network yet, the proxy network. So these actually all need to be on edge. We will be using the proxy network. Traffic does not need to be a member of it. It needs to be a member of edge. And anything that it needs to proxy for needs to be a member of edge as well. So let's just change that since I don't feel like that's reflective. That will now be proxy. And then we'll have the other one be internal like I had it before. And in fact, nah, we'll keep it at proxy. All right, so we've got our renamed networks. We want to kill everything and then remove it. Did it get everything? Okay. Yes. What about A? Some networks were defined but are not used by any service. Yes, I know. That's okay. We'll comment that out so that it'll quit barking at us. Is it on Perturbator? Oh, no. Submorphine. Still good. All right. We're just dealing with the proxy network for now, and that's fine. I think this will do what we want, but except I'm a fool, and this is not a YAML file. It is a TOML file. Those have to be strings. Okay, now I think we're cooking with gas. I don't have a counter for that, but I feel like that counts just for generic Midwestern vernacular. Okay, let's spin it up, see what we get. There we go. Error is a directory. Okay, I mapped it to a YAML file. Whenever you do that, Docker will like make a folder out of the missing file. It's really awkward. Okay, get rid of them. Fire it up again. All right, here we go. Is the Docker daemon running? So it can't. Fail to retrieve information of the Docker client and server host. Cannot connect to the Docker daemon. Var run Docker sock. But we've got it bound. Interesting. Is it somewhere else on my system? Am I not in the Docker group? I should be. Yeah, that seems identical to me. I wonder if something's changed about that or if it's something about my current configuration. Although maybe I haven't, I feel like I have though run yokai development. So let me pop over that real quick. Shit, what was I even in the middle of here? uh, Doing some wacky async stuff. We're gonna stash that for sure. God, what was it? Whatever, we'll just run it with a single instance of everything instead of trying to fan it out. This will probably be faster anyway. Oh shit, something totally exploded. NPCs. I don't really care about them. I'm missing a bunch of stuff. That's wacky. Okay, so the actors the actors are fucked up for some reason. But web is running. And I think that's all I care about. No, it's not. Is it GERD dot local domain? No. Uh, what is it? It's let's see, network inspect. Well, let's just list them. We want, well, let's remove edge. We don't need edge. Docker network. Ugh. Okay. Traffic ALB proxy. Okay. Some dogs are going ape shit. All right, well now they're done, I guess. No complaints there. So 172.22.01. If we hit that on 80, refuse to connect. Oh, duh, I'm not running it. Right, we're back to that. That's what was. Okay, full ADHD circle there. So cannot connect to the Docker daemon at Unix, yada yada yada. Ooh, let's keep that and one traffic documentation window. Okay, I'm not running Portainer. Oh, I didn't quite click it. Oh man, they did not boil it down. No, nothing happened. Okay, so they restarted the container. This is like 1 dot something. Oh, did it get it eventually? Maybe I should have just let it run. I mean, it's definitely up. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's getting it. It's exponent, yeah, or not exponential, but God, whatever. Linear back off. All right, why is it not seeing the Docker socket? Does that need to be Z as well for a bind mount? Should be well, I'm not giving it the damn thing unfettered. Oh shit, I had a slash instead of a period. I think that was it, folks. Yep. Okay, so now what I want to do, I want to use path rules instead of host rules because I just want to hit the normal port. I don't want to give a shit about host name because that's much easier to deal with in this demonstration. It's something that you would be able to do if you fucked around with mapping or if you had your own DNS server and everything, which I do in both of those cases, but I feel like that just kind of complicates things and muddies the water in terms of what it is I'm actually trying to demonstrate here. So we're going to go back over to the traffic configuration. We want to know about gosh, let's see. Routing configuration. Why will you not let me scroll the table of contents? Enable network lib swarm or load balancer swarm. No, okay, so it's just routing then that I care about. Or it's a am I defining a service? defining a route or a router. So path. Okay, we can just do path. I may have to get a little regexy with that later because I want static files to be served by this nginx container. So this is going to be like traffic routers web app endpoint is also web. We're going to have another path rule that we use here. This is going to be /static. I probably don't need to keep removing it every time I do this, but I'm just mildly paranoid, I guess. So let's see what we got. It's on 0000, which is good. Port 80. So I should just be able to go to localhost. And it's not giving me what I want, but maybe I can do localhost as the host match. And I think there's a way for us to combine these rules, but for right now, we'll just leave it as is. Okay. No, still nothing. I mean, I do notice it's not routing that either. That's unfortunate. Let's set our logging level to debug so that we can really get some info out of this, and we'll also turn on the dashboard. I don't know why they're not killing cleanly. All right, so there's all the dashboard nonsense. There is the web app. There is nginx. So this is the traffic dashboard, and it's quite nice. I mean, I'm not talking shit on it. It's just if you don't know what you're looking at, it can be a little confusing because they have their own sort of definitions for what a service is and what a router is and whatever else. But all right, so path prefix, I think is what I want. And we've got, okay, so the default host rule, I think I've got to delete because it's not picking that up from the label. And maybe I had defined the rule incorrectly. Traffic HTTP routers name rule. Interesting. That's what I think I did. Oh, I didn't do HTTP. Okay. Either way, we want this to be path prefix. We'll see if we can get away with this sort of like far-reaching one. Okay, I'm gonna... It's so... Okay, it's the Python one that takes so long to exit. I think I know why that is. It's not receiving the signal interrupt. Either way, it didn't take that long. All right, let's, yeah, getting the configuration now for sure. We've got nothing? What? Okay, well, I fucked something up there. It's just got the dashboard stuff now. Yeah, traffic, HTTP, routers. I mean, shit, maybe it's gotta have a rule of some kind. Because otherwise, I think everything is configured pretty nice. So yeah, path prefix may not be enough. It's either that or I do need to destroy it after those changes, but I wouldn't think so. Maybe we can turn off the debug level logging now. I wish it, I mean, I guess now that I've got the dashboard, it's really not all that helpful. Still just two. And there's a no op service. That's... Yeah, I've definitely missed something here. Maybe we should turn the access log back on. No, I feel like proxy with the prefix was appropriate. We'll put this back to info. I guess we'll take a look here at what it was doing. So that's static config, we're good there. Excuse me. All right, entry point name web, so that does exist. Docker is watching, it's looking at the socket. Oh, it still includes a default rule, even if we don't. So it receives a configuration, but it's nothing. It's just, yeah, like setting up its dashboard and stuff. Field not found, node endpoint. Okay, so something's wrong with the config. It's capital P maybe? Entry points, okay. Router define multiple, oh, okay. Yeah, I can't name them the same shit. This needs to be, what we'll call it web static now, not web server. That seems more appropriate, I think. Id of Allen, hey, sorry man, I've been in the zone here. You're not too late to the party. I got another, what, hour and 12 minutes, so we're going for a little while still. I am doing some load balancing with Traefik for fun and profit. Maybe not the profit part. And right now, not fun, but once it all works, it's pretty cool to see. So I think we've got more than enough time to fix this little faux pas I've made in the config and then demonstrate it switching traffic between these two services at the same host name with different paths. We can crank up the concurrency of, I mean, we don't really need to crank up the concurrency of the web server, but we can crank up the concurrency of the web app, which, yeah, I need to call this static after I tear everything down. And then, yeah, we'll kind of build just like a really simple page that demonstrates the two of them working in concert with one another. But how you doing, buddy? I hope you're having a good night and that you had a good day. What have you been working on lately? I know you've posted several potential project ideas on Twitter. I just don't know if any one of them caught your fancy long enough to make any headway on. I mostly get like seriously in the zone when a problem is pissing me off, I've noticed. And that was definitely the case here. I think I've got it licked. So I had this as endpoints instead of entry points. And then I believe we can go back to testing overlapping paths to make sure that the more specific is the one that wins, because I don't actually know what sort of strategy Traefik is using to accomplish that. Traffic depends on web server, which is undefined. Right, I got to change this to static. All right, no errors. We've got, hey, we've got 4 routers. So we've got web app and web static, both from Docker labels. That's awesome. We'll just have to try them out then. So this could be, doesn't have to be 127. Could just be localhost. And then we'll go to localhost 80. All right, so that's the web app. And now we go to static. Oh, shit. All right, so the mapping there, I think I remember. We're just going to cheat. We're just going to cheat like a motherfucker. And I should really just make this easier on myself. And make that the index. Okay, I already removed it. Getting into that same habit where I'll like have to ls every single directory I drop into. Org mode to mdx to post on your blog. Nice. Yeah, I did a bit of blog tinkering here recently. Let me see if I can remember what I had done. Made this collapsible. I can't animate it. It's apparently really not easy to animate. And that turned out to be true. You have to use like a JavaScript API, and I'm trying to have almost zero JavaScript on here. The only JavaScript I have that makes it into the rendered page, it's all JavaScript that builds the static site, but the static site itself, the only JavaScript that exists is to hide the side menu if you, well, I'm not quite skinny enough yet. There we go. To hide the side menu on page load before it gets to paint anything. And that's it. And it winds up getting squashed into like a single line that's maybe 30 characters worth of JavaScript that just gets run in line on every page. It's not even a separate HTTP request. But oh yeah, I trimmed the black bars off of the little YouTube video preview there. I moved my license info into a page instead of having ugly shit that was off color down in the footer that I just couldn't find a good way to make it mesh with the sort of the rest of the design that was going on here. So now it just gets its own call out over here. And then I rearranged a bunch of like templates to rely on more common code rather than repeating basically the same thing with just, you know, slight variations or at different places in the page. So I added a few functions to the 11D setup there. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with it now. And like every page has this little suggest and edit button, except the home page. I guess I could find a place to slot that in somewhere maybe. But every other page that has content on it and is not like generated has this suggest and edit button that'll take you straight to the source on GitHub. And if you're not me, you'll have to create a branch and it'll do a pull request by default. So I thought that worked out pretty well. Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole site's hosted on GitHub pages and the source is available on GitHub. So I figured like, well, shit, we'll go the whole 9 yards. We'll just lock it in all the way. I say that it wouldn't be terribly difficult to build it on some different infrastructure. It's just nice to have it there. So, all right, let's test this shit out. I think we got our mapping good by cheating now. So we go to localhost, we get our web application, we go to localhost static, and we get static. And less than 2 hours with a 10-minute break. So that's good. I like that. That's good and cool. And then you smash it together and it's good. As in, I thought I could, and then I thought I could not, and then I did. So now what we're gonna do, I mean, it's pretty easy to demonstrate, like, hey, you could scale up the web application and it'll balance between them. So I guess we'll just do that real quick to get it out of the way. So we will, what is it? Scale web app equals 4. And you can see now there are 4 instances of that application running. But in the way that this works, none of them know about each other. They don't know that they are not the first stop to the outside world. They can all use the same port. There's no weird bullshit port mapping you have to do. Traefik sees all 4 of them. And Traefik will, and you can configure the load balancing algorithm. They have a few available. I'm just using whatever the default is right now, which I think is some kind of round robin. it'll cycle between them, and so it just comes free sort of for using Traefik, and then using Docker Compose as the stack. And I'm sure Kubernetes has a very similar way to handle this. It's maybe even more sophisticated, you know, and drinking tea with its pinky in the air on a veranda or something like that, overlooking a hedge maze. Probably that seems like what would be appropriate. But at any rate, that's easy. So we fired that up. Let's just look at the web app logs. So, I mean, first of all, you can see when I'm reloading the shit out of this page repeatedly. You can see that the only request that comes through is for favicon, because I didn't bother to set up a null route for that. It's not trying to get slash, so it's not trying to get the content for the page. That is being shunted off to static, which is web static instead of web app. So if we say logs follow web static, here's all those requests that I was just doing there frantically. So we'll watch all 4 of the web apps. We'll load local hosts, and you can see here that's being handled by web app 2, whereas all those requests for the favicon, those were split between all of them. So like web app 2 got some of them, web app 3 got some of them, web app 1 got some of them, web app 4 got some of them. Now it's back to web app 2 serving this request. I load it again, you know, it kind of came from both of these. So 1 and 3 just served that. So you can configure Traefik to do sticky sessions so that like a particular session or IP address or whatever it is gets, you know, constantly assigned to the same load balancer. But again, I feel like that's kind of outside of the scope of this demonstrative or demonstrative whatever slash tutorial style stream that we've got going on tonight. So we'll just, again, we're leaving it with the standard load balancer algorithm that comes out of the box. Yeah, absolutely. Hedge maze, it's got to be. Top hats, coattails, all that shit. So let's start. I mean, we're going to build a static page, so let's do that. We got HTML. We are in, is it dash? Fuck, I can't remember. We're in jolly old United States. What? No, head. I should totally macro this at some point in my life, but I just have not and don't know that I ever will. It's just the way it is. And we'll call it the Jamstack page of infinity. Okay. So I believe, because that's mounted through Docker Compose. Oh, right, I killed it. I guess we didn't really need to stop any of that in order to demonstrate this. So there we go. We've got a static page. We bounce back over to our very simple Flask web application that we've got going here. So we've just got that hello world. What we're going to do instead now, we are going to sort of flip these rules. Man, what am I looking for? There we go. Good grief. We're going to flip these rules a bit to where the web app only receives API calls, and it's going to be an API, not an app so much. And then the root is all handled by our static file web server. So we could get rid of this. Whoops. We could get rid of that distinction. So our static files are just mounted to the root of the nginx web server. And now we're trying to build an API. I do need to kill all of this so that it will rename things appropriately after I bring it back up. All right, so we've got our API defined. We've got an API route. We're going to JSON encode something. This will be API endpoint. So API function name. We're going to return a dumped dictionary. We'll just call it content. And then in our static file, we'll make a script here. I guess we'll await. Okay, that seems simple enough. I think maybe I have to export something though. And then here we will load it. So, what am I doing? Type. You can tell I've been in web development for way too fucking long. And I do need type. It just wasn't going to be application or text slash JavaScript. This could also be async. Okay. Now again, we do need to restart the web app because I don't think I have Flask configured for hot reload, but I killed everything anyway, so that's fine. Oh, nice, your default browser tab. That's a good place to put that shit. Okay, so not static. We go here. Now, what's it having trouble with? API is not loading. So what happened? It's doubling up, I think. Ah, shit. I didn't want to kill it. No module named demo. Interesting. Well, what was... Oh, okay. So I actually have to rename that folder as well. Done. You know, I could name it correctly, or we could just go with the fucked up version. Docker Compose is going to pull in. All right, it builds. So setup. We want it to install web API, not, there it is. Not web app. Okay. Orphan containers. Yeah, I need to kill those. All right. And there we go. We can add a delay to make that a bit more pronounced, maybe. So what we'd say set timeout. Well, let's define that as something. Arg. There you go. So, yes, pretty much what we have here now is a split between our entirely dynamic web application that is now effectively just an API layer and a static web server service that is very good at serving static web files, way better than any library or framework that you're going to be using, especially in a language like Python. I kind of mentioned this toward the beginning of the stream, but nginx has some pretty unique properties that it works with the kernel in handing off static files to the socket so that it can then pick up another connection and handle that. And so freeing your dynamic web application from needing to deal with any of that shit is pretty nice. And so you can have it serve all of your static HTML and your JavaScript, and then you have your API off to the side that is handling all of the dynamic stuff. Now, in this case, you know, we're just dumping something out here. And we could set this to like, hey, it's now this time, and you could have it pull a new joke every 10 seconds or whatever, just maybe to be a better demonstration of the fact that like, hey, it is changing and it is coming from this Python service, and you can watch it in the logs to where you can see here web APIs getting hit after index.js gets loaded by web static. So you can see it splitting this apart. And if, you know, if we had it set up the way we did before, where there was like 4 of the web application or web API containers, you'd see it load balancing amongst that as well. So I'm pretty satisfied with the finished product here. I did stumble a little bit in the Traefik configuration since it had been a while. But really there's nothing terribly different about the way that it's set up now in 2.9 or something versus 2. I think 7 was the last one that I had used to any, you know, large degree. But yeah, so let's step back through and sort of cap this. And then I'll take a short break, and then we'll wrap it up kind of tinkering with my Kotlin project to get us ready to keep the Radathon going on to the next person who, honestly, it's been like a day or two since I've looked, and I can't remember offhand. Radiathon. That is where we try to sell all of you home heating equipment. And so there's the link for you all, anybody that's awake right now. Loose, awesome. Well, fuck yeah, we're gonna be raiding into Loose. That's fantastic. I haven't seen a Loose stream in a while, and I've got enough energy that I can actually stay awake for maybe an hour of it, so that's awesome. But yeah, we'll step through this recap real quick, and then I'll take a short break. So now in this demo, we're going to talk about, or we did talk about Python, because that was just something I knew I could put together very quickly using very little code. Like if you ignore the setup for the application and you just strictly look at the definition for the API itself, like, you got to admit, this is pretty fucking terse. And so that was the only reason Python was chosen here. So ignore Python in terms of the stack and just replace it with whatever your server language of choice would be. I am going to be employing this very same stack using a Kotlin web service and a gRPC service in the somewhat near future. And it has no trace of Python, for 1,000 miles. But everything else about this is going to be pretty much identical. So we'll step through that. The main technologies at play here are Docker itself. And depending on your server-side tech and how the container for it is organized, this may or may not be necessary. If I didn't actually need to install requirements, or I was okay with installing them from scratch every time this container, started up, then there would be no need for me to define my own Docker file. I could just have everything in the compose. But anyway, we've got, Docker, and then Docker Compose, and this is just being used to orchestrate the 3 different services together that make up this stack. And so principal among them is Traefik, which we'll get into in a second. Web API, now this is just going to be whatever that server side language of choice you had was. And it doesn't even necessarily, have to be an application that you wrote. It could just be something that you're trying to split that would normally serve static files itself, as well as serve dynamic content, which, we had a lot of that we would install off the shelf at my last job. And I sped up some of them just to an insane degree by doing something similar to this, using some Internet Information Services rewrite rules, which is just Microsoft's web server software before like .NET Core, which I think is like Kestrel now or something. But anyway, whatever server side type of application you've got set up, that'll fill the gap there. And then we've got our static web server. Again, I'm using nginx in this case, but you could just as easily use something like Caddy or Lite, or again, God forbid, Apache. I think it's way too heavy-handed for this, especially just for serving static files. But if that's all you know, that would be a way to get started. I just think the way that this is set up, you don't really need to think about the fact that it's nginx. You just give it a folder of static files and it serves them for you. We've got that as the root of our site. So really the whole site is being served by nginx. It's only the dynamic content that needs to hit this API is being served by this other endpoint. And then circling back around to this first one, we've got Traefik, which again, it has turned into sort of a product suite now, but really what we're using is the Traefik proxy software. And it can do a ton of shit. And you can get it set up to use like Let's Encrypt certificates and do the automatic rotation and SSL termination and all that good shit that I talked about at the beginning of the stream here. But we're keeping it very, very simple for this demo. And really all that we took advantage of was the fact that it can listen to the Docker socket and then using the labels that are available on the various containers that it sees getting spun up or torn down, it will dynamically configure itself to proxy traffic there. And so we've set up the static site to listen to the root prefix for the site. So by default, everything hits this rule. It's like the default rule. And then we have /API that's getting handed off to, in this case, our Python application. But again, could be whatever. Could be some existing software that you purchased and you're just running it. You don't have a whole lot of control and you're just trying to speed it up by offloading the serving of static files. Or it is your personal application that you have full control over, but you still don't want to be responsible for serving static files because, I mean, just especially with interpreted languages, you're not going to beat the speed of nginx handling this for you because of the various features that it has available to it, because it's very good at doing what it does. It's just a web server. Now, it can also act as a proxy, but we've got Traefik, so we don't need that. The Traefik configuration that we've got set up is pretty basic. I'm just telling it not to bother me that there's a new version available, because I mean, honestly, we have it pinned to the latest tag for the Docker image. So anytime you rebuild, you're going to get the new version regardless. So you just decide if you're ready for that. We've turned off usage reporting just for this case, because again, I wanted very little in the debug logs while I was pouring through it, but we've defined a single entry point. It can do secure entry points, which is just as simple as telling it this is web secure and it exists on 443. And then there's some additional TLS configuration that maybe we'll get into in a future stream. But we're binding that to port 80. I enabled logging by default. I don't think it has any, or it's logging to a file that you would have to trace, or it only shows errors. I think that's what it was. It was only showing errors, whereas I wanted to see the startup information. We have turned on the dashboard and we've allowed for the dashboard to be available without TLS because we're running all of this on localhost. And then we've decided that our provider for it to listen to is going to be Docker. We're not exposing every container that it sees on the host socket, although you can allow it to do that. We're telling it only to look for containers on this network. And then it's using those labels that we had pointed out earlier. And the first one that it needs to see is enable true. And then beyond that, it's sort of the rules that you have for this container to pin it to a particular entry point if you wanted to. For the most part, if you're trying to put everything behind a single host name, they're all going to use the same entry point, and it's really going to be the path prefix that you're going to use in order to separate those. We've got all of these on the same Docker network right now, but in a future stream, something that I'm going to demonstrate is like if you had a database server that some of these needed to access but did not need to be accessible from the outside world, you would have this internal network. Anything that needed to access it, like our web API, would then depend on whatever that container was, and it would be on that network as well. So it would straddle those two, but Traefik would not be aware of it and would not be proxying any traffic for it. So then it's like shielding it from the outside world. But all right, we're going to take a 5 to 10 minute break. We'll go for another half hour, and then we're going to raid over into loose. So it's going to be pretty fantastic, folks. Alan, glad to have you, by the way. We'll do the Halloween beats. This is a really good mix. I think some of it started to come up in a different playlist earlier in the stream, but I don't give a shit. Get one more drop in. All right, so with the time we have left, I think I'm gonna tie a bow on this, get a README for it, cordon this off into like a specific folder, I guess. So we would like, this would be what, Jamstack. I guess we can add that, worry about the HTTPS, the TLS stuff later. So for the time being, We'll need a README. We'll need a license file. That wasn't what I thought it was. I mean, it probably is, but I wanted the one with the dash. Let's see. The stack is built with Docker Compose and includes the following containers. Guess we don't need the in front of all these. Let's see. Yeah, web requests whose responses need to be dynamically generated. All right, I think that's decent level of documentation to start with. We'll get some links going here, so we definitely want to link Traefik, which I've already done. It needs to be like that, I think, is the style. Maybe Jamstack. Find a good link for that in a minute. Loose, hello and welcome. It's a good thing you're awake. We're gonna raid you in 21 minutes. I'm just wrapping up this project that we finished on stream. That I'm pretty happy I saw from start to finish with an empty directory. So, what else? We want to link Docker Compose. We'll say we'll link detected automatically here, I guess. That looked misspelled, but I think it was actually correct, which is strange. We will link Flask just cause. And finally, we'll link nginx. We could link all those other ones that are like examples of alternatives, but I feel like people who care about swapping the web server out for something else would already know where to find their own. All right, so let's find a good Jamstack definition. Well, hey, there you go. Bing, bang, boom. Jamstack.org. Fucking do it. We'll do the root of compose. Fuck, I guess we'll just put slashes on all this shit. Alright,
What?
so Traefik. What? Han so high. How high are you, Han? Welcome in. Thank you for the follow. The shit, I wanted this one. Here we go. Alright. From labels. Yeah, I think that's a good link. And then nginx. And then I think we're good on links, honestly. nginx.org. Hey. Easy peasy. Okay, we got a license. We got a readme. We got all this stuff. What was it? It was like label, author. Oh, does that have to be after? Okay. We will get rid of this sort of like dev volume mapping we had going. We'll get rid of internal network for now. We'll move networks to be in alphabetical order. Version has to come first, so that doesn't count. We'll be consistent with our spacing. Get rid of the image name. We don't need that. Let's add some comments here. Place with your own web application. Whose paths begin? Fuck, I don't know. That's words are hard, dude. All right. Read only access to Docker socket to see available containers. Okay, that's in decent shape. I feel like, I mean, this is kind of self-explanatory. That's fine. Yeah, I think everything else is decent. Let's look at the traffic config real quick. We'll get rid of the web secure stuff. Dashboard available at. All right. I think that looks pretty good too. Okay, so I don't necessarily like the name. So it's not going to be Traefik ALB, it'll be Traefik Jam Stack example. And we'll do Gitmoji for this. What? Is it just Gitmoji? Oh, it's npm. So it's pip install g or just pip install node env. Node env. Use the Python environment. Okay, we got node. Now npm ig gitmoji CLI. There we are. My experience with Cater. I enjoy it, but I haven't tried to do anything too serious with it. I'm going to be getting into that in the next few streams. I recently just got it. I sort of crammed a gRPC server into it. I need to learn a little bit more about how to develop your own plugins for Cater to see how I could take advantage of plugins for continuing or configuring the gRPC service. But at any rate, I like the way that it uses DSL to construct stuff. That's really cool. And the way that you split things into modules is really compelling. Spring, I feel like you can't really compare it with because Cater does not specify its own dependency injection. I started using Coin, and I really like Coin quite a lot. But you could, in theory, use Spring dependency injection with Cater if you really wanted to. But a lot of the way that Cater is built, you could get away with not using dependency injection at all and just use separate configurations with different modules for your different source sets. So like test would have one configuration. I mean, I do that also, but I want to test the modules that I'm using in production, so I load most of them as well. But anyway, if you've worked with Cater, I think you kind of get the idea of what I'm talking about. But if you haven't and you've only worked with Spring, it's different for sure. It leans heavy into Kotlin idioms for everything and very much away from maybe like the traditional Java way of handling that kind of stuff. Spring is not bad though. I've used Spring quite a bit at work. But yeah, welcome in. Glad to have you here. Gitmoji. I think it's what? Did it not install? All right, let's deac. Well, was I in yokai? Motherfucker. Or am I 2 levels? Am I 2 levels deep? Okay. It was, well, init the hook. Or no, shit, it's G. Yes, G. Okay. There we go. So, make sure we're only including what we want to. Initial commit. Ta-da. Yeah, begin a project. Okay. Carve a spot out for it. What was that? Traefik JAM stack example. I'm pretty sure what it was. Using Traefik. It's public. I've already got all of that shit. We'll use SSH. And there we are. The first commit of the new project that will probably only be revisited a couple times until it's basically done. I should have separated that maybe, but that's okay. Oh, and I missed a link. No way. Well, we gotta fix that shit. That's gonna bother me forever. And I misspelled requests. Who the fuck am I? What is going on here? Space. We'll capitalize that. We will... Actually, no, let's not. Yeah, I have a for fuck's sake command that just, it's git commit amend no edit git push force. I think it might even do a git add dot. Okay, Jamstack example configuration. Example configuration for a Jamstack app suite, which is being load balanced behind a single endpoint using Traefik. The stack is built with Docker Compose, includes following services. We've got responsible for handling HTTP requests and passing them to the appropriate downstream service. Those are detected automatically. That's linked. Okay. Flask did not get linked. What in the fuck? Let's stop palettes projects. Cutting it close. All right, Flask was after detected automatically. Still no? There it is. Okay. Flask web framework only exists to serve as an example. Any server-side web application could be used in its place. Web requests whose responses need to be dynamically generated are handled by the service. Static web service using nginx under the hood, but could just easily use something more familiar to you, caddy like TTP, etc. Web requests whose responses are static are handled by this service, relieving the web API of this responsibility and managing it with a much more capable application. Okay. Let's get well, I gotta do my initial setup here. So What do we want? We want to turn off wiki projects. We'll do only squash merge. Always suggest. Automatically delete head branches. Okay. We'll add some tags, and then I think it will be about time to raid into loose and keep the train going. So we've got Traefik. We've got Jamstack. We've got nginx. We've got Python, and we've got Flask. There's JavaScript, HTML, CSS. All right. Or no, we'll just have what? Wait, definitely JavaScript, and then static. Okay. No releases, no packages, no environments, no website. All right, I think that's looking pretty decent. That's a good start for, you know, 2.5 hours. So I'll probably next time around, if I am working on this, which is not a guarantee because I bounce around to all kinds of shit, Alan, you feel me? We will add TLS with Let's Encrypt, and we'll show how to like map it to host names, and then maybe we'll try to make it at least a slightly more complex Jamstack application. But honestly, like I said, I'm going to be slotting my Cater web service into this exact structure. So this wasn't just for tutorial purposes. It was something that I have been and will continue to work with in the very near future. And so it was a good topic for me to go through with everybody else because it kind of cements my own knowledge as well to get up and talk about it for a little while and try to work through it from scratch. Because we started with an empty directory when we were doing this, and so you got to see a lot of the research take place too, even if it was a lot of frantically bouncing between browser tabs. But let's see. We'll do a quick up close. I think it's this one. Yep. All right. Happy Raidathon, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Luce, we're going to be coming your way in a second. We'll go, we'll just flip to the end scene. Why not? There we go. Because we are wrapping up, folks. Let me bring Luce up here. Luce Carter. I'm in an ad break. Shame. Okay, so lost keyboard there for a second. All right, well, everyone, this has been wonderful. Let's keep the raid train going. Thank everybody for coming by. I hope this was informative. I'm going to hopefully cut this into a much shorter YouTube video, try to get really just the meat of it, and maybe cut out the part where I fucked up things and had to backtrack. Although some of that is honestly worthwhile, keeping that in as well. So we'll see. But I'm going to hang out in Luce's chat for a little while. So I will see everybody there.